Galen, I've spent my life focusing on the problems that can't be seemingly solved, like what is the mind and the brain and what it's all about. Studied brain science and looked at a lot of philosophy. And one of the views in philosophy seems ridiculous, that mind is everything. There's only everything we see in the physical world is sort of a construct of the mental, this idealism point of view. But as you begin to think about the problems of integrating the mental and the physical, to some people, idealism has a greater and greater appeal as you think about it. What is your view of idealism and trying to solve the problem of what it's all about?
Well, I call myself a panpsychist, but I'm not committed to that view, but I am certainly concerned to put it forward and suggest that it needs to be taken very seriously. And some people would call panpsychism a version of idealism.
And panpsychism is the view that in everything there is at least an experiential component in everything. In my pants, in my shirt, on the table, every atom, every
Yes, but quite importantly, I don't think that your shirt and the table are having experiences. What I do think is that if there really are fundamental particles, little bits of which everything is made, which is already disputable, then they at least have to be experiential. And one way to look at that is, a lot of people agree that they somehow consist of energy in some way, and I'm saying that energy is itself a kind of experientiality.
So how then do we integrate a panpsychic view that there is an experiential part in everything, in the energy, in the forces of nature, to what would seem as an extreme position, idealism, that everything that exists is all a manifestation of the mental?
Well, that's there's a big move, it seems to me, in the word manifestation. If idealism means everything is made of ideas, which is what it primarily means, then I think it's wrong, because you can't have ideas without having a haver of the ideas. You can't have experience without a subject of experience. So that's why I don't like the term idealism. It suggests everything's just ideas, but whose? So I'm really saying all these things are subjects of experience, because you can't have experiencing going on without having a subject of experience.
Well, idealism would say that there is a mental reality. Some people would say a spiritual reality. Some in religion, perhaps many Eastern religions, would say that everything that we see is a manifestation of the cosmic consciousness, which is a grand mind, and that's the fundamental ground of being is a cosmic consciousness. So consciousness is the reality. We're seeing here temporal manifestations of it, which is the physical world.
Sure, but still, you've got to have a mind as well as just ideas. And I guess you're granting that. So it's still wrong, technically, to say that's idealism. Everything is just ideas. In your ontology, in your view about what actually exists, you've got to have an actual mind, a subject of experience who is having the ideas.
And so how do you get that?
Insofar as I'm a panpsychist, and of course I'm a bit obviously tentative about that, I think that every patch of experientiality must come with a haver, a subject of experience that is having the experience.
So what is the subject of the experience of every little...
So they are, I have to say it, they are subjects.
So every piece of energy or particle or force is a subject.
Yeah, but you only get more interesting subjects, as it were, like us or dolphins or dogs, or when you put matter together in certain ways. I don't think you get it when you put matter together as a table or a camera.
Sure. But on the other hand, you think that if you put ordinary, non-experiential matter together in interesting, complex ways, you can ever get what the product of our brains are the internal feelings of what we think.
That's right. So the standard picture would be I know that it sounds very plausible that the fundamental particles, the electrons, the protons, the neutrons, and so on, are not in themselves in any way experiencing anything. But when you put them together in the fabulously complicated way in which they get put together in brains with all that electrochemistry, which is macroelectrical, that consciousness emerges. That's the standard position.
But you can never get that emergence without each of the individual particles having at least an experiential component.
That's my view, that you can't, if you've got radically non-experiential stuff, you can put it together how you like, but you'll never suddenly get feelings. I don't see how that's possible unless there's some kind of feelingness already there at the start.
By privileging the experience of consciousness, the internal feeling, you are then developing your panpsychism theory. But why not go all the way to idealism? If this experiential sense is so critical to understanding reality, what's wrong with going all the way to idealism, where everything is mental, which many people believe, Eastern religions, some people in the Christian religion would skew to that as well?
Well, there is a sense in which I'm open to the idea that everything is mental. I think actually it's the most parsimonious theory, but you've got to be clear what that means. I still have a problem with the word idealism because I don't think everything's ideas. Some people think that there's a cosmic consciousness and that everything is just a manifestation of that cosmic consciousness's mind or experiences. But then, who's it a manifestation to? I can't just be an idea. I've got to be a subject of experience in order to be manifested to. So you can't have just ideas.
Well, the argument would be that the cosmic consciousness itself has, although it's not personal in Eastern religions, it does have a causative, subjective nature that it can manifest physical things.
So there's just one. So there's just one subject.
Maybe, yeah.
That was Spinoza's view, and I profoundly admire Spinoza, and my default position is whatever he says must be right because he's so clever. And his view is precisely that we are modes of the one substance. You and I are just aspects of it, and there really is only one mind.
So he has moved so-called to pantheism. And
yes.
How do you differentiate then pantheism from panpsychism?
Well, his God, which is just nature. I mean, a lot of people. The view in the history of philosophy is that he's an atheist, right?
Yeah, right.
Because he says God just is nature, but that's incredibly unfair. Of course, he meant what he said.
So, how then do you differentiate pantheism from panpsychism?
Well, I don't think either implies the other. So I could be a panpsychist and think there are lots of minds, but you and I are finite minds. We are not identical with God or parts of God, and God has some, demands on us, and there's God. So there's lots of minds, but not everything is God. Or you could be like Spinoza and think that we are just modes of God. If you're a pantheist, you don't have to be a panpsychist, going the other way, because you could think there really is material stuff as well. And that again is Spinoza's view. He thinks that God is material through and is mental through, and somehow, incomprehensibly, it's all the same. But there isn't a privileging of the mental over the physical. So you could say he's a panpsychist, but not a materialist. He just says...
All right, so if we stay with panpsychism, which is your view, I think there are at least two varieties. One variety says that of the things of the physical world, which are real, particles or forces or energy, that there's an experiencing part, this panpsychic part, and non-experiencing part, which is maybe the reality of the world. Another view would say that it's all an experiencing part, and somehow that manifests itself. Now, that to me sounds like idealism.
Okay, I think it would be classified as idealism, but maybe it sounds pedantic. But I just want to insist that you're not saying everything is ideas, because if you've got an experiencing part, you've got a subject of experience, and a subject of experience is not itself just an idea. Actually, brackets, I might think that in the end, but it's a very long and complicated argument. I think you've got to allow that the subjects are there as well as just ideas.